Name is Chris Gaming Librarian, and I'm coming at you with a very long overdue and sort of impromptu intro to gaming in libraries session. As you may know, I had taken a few months off earlier during the summertime because I was expecting the arrival of my firstborn child, and she has, of course, since come along. And so I'm hoping to slowly start getting the process going again of uploading these episodes more regularly and providing information on how you can get gaming started in your libraries, wherever that may be, and whether it's a public library, an academic library, school library, or any other public space where youth, kids, adults congregate and are passionate about gaming. For today's episode, because it is a little bit impromptu, what I'm going to do is just talk about some of the hidden gems of games I've played over the summertime while I've been on parental leave. Because surprisingly enough, when you have a baby, when you are not feeding that baby and changing their diaper, they are sleeping a lot, and that allows you to play a lot of games. And so I'm going to cover some of the hidden gems that I've really enjoyed playing through the summertime. And then what I will do is, as you can see on the screen right now, show you one of my wonderful resources that you may or may not know about that I use quite regularly in regards to my collection development at the library. This resource I find to be very helpful just in regards for being up to date with what new game releases are coming up and giving me an idea of how to best manage my budget. If you go back to my earlier episodes, and if you go to youtube.com and look up Chris the Gaming Librarian, you'll see past episodes where I talk about, big games coming out in 2021. Well, since then, there's been a couple of gaming conferences that have since been aired. And so there's been some updates to some of the release dates on titles that I didn't know about back then, as well as some adjusting periods along the way. So not uncommon in a pandemic, but seeing some games that were meant to be 2021 releases being pushed back into early 2022. So without further ado, let's go to some of the hidden gems that I have played throughout the summertime. So the first one that I will start with is Psychonauts 2. This game has actually been a real gem. Came out on Xbox, but also available on Steam. This is the critically acclaimed sequel to sort of the cult hit Psychonauts that came out way back in 2005 for the original Xbox. This is, as I said, available on Steam and Windows Series X and S, as well as Xbox One. It's about an 8-hour campaign, but really is a intriguing, wild ride of a platformer. If you enjoy games like Mario, if you've enjoyed games like Ratchet and Clank this year, for example, Psychonauts sort of exists in the old school realm of platformers of the mid 2000s, but also tackles a really relevant story. As you can tell, Psychonauts in the title, you're obviously dealing with things to do with the psyche and everything else mind related. And so what I really enjoyed about this game, and it gives you the warning right at the very beginning, is that it's going to deal with mental health issues, but it tackles things like depression, like addiction, like anxiety, from very interesting perspectives, whether it's enemy types like bad moods or panic attacks, to entire levels constructed of the human mind where you're going through and helping somebody overcome grief. For example, Psychonauts 2 has a very humorous and mature approach to tackling some of these subjects. And so it took about 8 to 12 hours for me to complete. So it was about a weekend play, I would say. And really found it to be quite the enjoyable experience. There is no physical edition just yet, so it is digital only. Also available on the PlayStation series of consoles as well. And what I have really enjoyed about it is the fact that it was short, sweet, and to the point. The next sort of hidden gem that has come out, and I did highlight this earlier in some of my episodes. Thank you for tuning in, Fade, and practicing your French. I see. Comment allez-vous? Ça va bien? Et toi? I'm just doing a intro to gaming in libraries episode at the moment. So please feel free for those tuning in. If you have questions that you want to drop in the chat, even if it's to practice your French, feel free to do so. Now, WarioWare was the next hidden gem on my list. In the ongoing series, WarioWare has existed both on home consoles since the GameCube and Wii era, as well as in the handheld space, so on the DS, on the GBA, or Game Boy Advance, and the 3DS. And so you sort of have an amalgamation of all of these various mini games and how they play in the Get It Together collection. And if you tune into one of my Let's Play series, specifically relating to WarioWare, you can see the quirky charm of the game itself. Now, the reason I bring up this hidden gem is because at my library, whenever I would run my video gaming programming, Super Mario Party was a huge hit on the Switch. Everyone loved it, and even on our older consoles, things like Mario Party 9 and 10, which came out on the Wii and Wii U, were remarkably huge because they're party games. They invite people to come together and really enjoy themselves. WarioWare is like that, but with little segmented clips of games. So any game that you play, you have 5 seconds to do it in, and in those 5 seconds, you have to figure out what the rule of the game is, what your character can do, and then actually beat the level to progress. Now, if you do end up dying because you only have 4 lives or 4 continues, do not fret. You have a chance to restart from where you sort of failed to pass the last objective and go on. What I really enjoyed about this game is that if you're a Nintendo fan, it does pay a lot of fan service to you and reward you with knowing, oh, I know that character or I know that stage from a past game. But it also offers something different to work with in terms of if you have a library crowd that is really interested in Mario Party, then this gives them something a little bit quirkier to play, something different, and really outside of Mario Party, which matches can take up to 30-40 minutes at a time, this is in micro bursts. And so even if you're playing through the story campaign or playing multiplayer together, often I have found that the multiplayer collections that they've put together are no longer than 10 minutes tops. And so you can have little micro doses as you go along. And thank you, Fade. So come see, come ça. I'm glad you're doing well. And so hopefully that will be a très bien fairly soon. So for the last hidden gem that I will discuss, and of course, again, for the Nintendo Switch, is Cruisin' Blast. This one has been a real treat. It sort of harkens back to my childhood on the N64 and in the arcades. The Cruisin' series was infamously known in the arcade era and the N64 era. You had Cruising USA, Cruising Exotica, and there was one other, I think it was Cruising World, that were sort of the trilogy of the Cruisin' series. And so they had laid dormant for quite some time, and then Cruisin' Blast came out in the arcade around 2 years ago. And outside of the arcade, and of course with the pandemic shutting down a lot of arcades around the world, there wasn't much of a chance for people to play this. Well, during E3 this year, Nintendo announced that they were going to release this game in September, and I'm pleased to say this has been one of my all-time favorites to play through. I went on a plane trip recently, brought this along with me, and it's such easy to pick up and play multiplayer. Don't expect amazing graphics, but expect quirky over-the-top action, zany arcade cars, I mean, for the fact that I can, in one race be driving a regular Camaro, to the next race being in a UFO, to the next race being in an attack helicopter. Cruise and Blast is not something that takes itself seriously, but allows for quick and easy pick up and play, especially with up to 4 players. So if you're running a library program, this is definitely worth picking up. And as you can see in the background, it is priced quite cheap. So that's $39.99 Canadian that you see right now. If you can find the physical edition and you want to add that to your library collection, they do exist at the moment, though you may have to go through some, places like EB Games or GameStop or Amazon in order to find it. But this has been one of those hidden gems that really I hope more people get a chance to play, and more gamers out there who haven't had the chance to play it get to experience it for the first time. Now, going through some of these release dates, of course, I would have touched upon some of them in my video segments that I put up back in June and early July, talking about the big releases in 2021. Now, as I go through, I will point out some of the big titles coming up, and then outside of that, I will also point out some of the hidden gems that have come up that may not be in the mainstream, but are definitely worth picking up and trying out. And of course, I will give credit right at the very top to Iain Wilson, who is the author of this article and has done a fantastic job of updating it. So I prefer Gamesradar when I do go through and purchase games for my library. I tend to find that they are the most up-to-date in terms of new game releases, whether it's for this year or beyond. And it gives me a good idea of what games are coming out across all consoles. So not just, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, but also PC and other platforms like Google Stadia. And again, easy enough to find. You can either go to Gamesradar directly, and at the top you can see that the video game release dates, or just do a Google search, 2021 game releases, and this will be one of the first ones that comes up. Now, going through for September, as you can see in the image provided within, one of the biggest games coming up right now has been Kena Bridge of Spirits. And thank you, Fade, for tuning in. I hope you have a great night, and thank you for supporting my stream. See you later. So, Kena Bridge of Spirits has recently come out. Ember Lab is the creator. This was a game that was marketed during the PlayStation 5 launch conference that happened, and after a number of delays is finally coming out and has come out to rave reviews. This one is created by Ember Labs, who is an animation studio and had sort of their hat in the animation game, and this is their first take at a video game. If you look at reviews across the board, this one has been scoring really well, because for those out there who remember platforming and adventure games on the PlayStation 2, on the Xbox, on the N64, this is what Kena harkens back to. And just announced when the game came out yesterday is the fact that there is going to be a physical release. So right now it is a digital only title on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, but if you're willing to hold out until November, this game will be coming out then. So just keep an eye open for that release date, and if you think it would be a good fit for your library, I cannot recommend it enough. Going through, and not on this list, Deathloop has also been a huge hit, getting 10 out of 10 scores across the board. That's one that I've also been playing recently and will likely highlight in my upcoming Let's Play segment on Friday. So if you have not added that to your library's collection, that is a PlayStation 5 and PC exclusive. Definitely worth picking up. Super quirky, psychedelic game focusing on time and altering time as you go along. Coming out tomorrow is Diablo 2 Resurrected. So this one is a remaster and reworking of the classic Diablo 2 game that, of course, spawned the Diablo series and sort of put it into the stratosphere. It's a top-down, bird's-eye view sort of game. You get to build your character like you would in any RPG, and then you're moving your character along. Now, this is the first time that it has been on a console and not just the PC, so it allows you to use a controller to move your character around, and definitely worth checking out. Death Stranding Director's Cut for the PlayStation 5 is going to be a re-release of the PlayStation 4 title by Hideo Kojima. Sorry for the mispronunciation on that name. Basically, Kojima Studios. Everyone jokes that it is the Amazon simulator of games, but there has been a lot of work done to build up the game, make it more fast-paced, and have it move along. If you give me a moment, I will sort of adjust the font so that it can be seen more clearly. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, I will highly recommend. This one came out earlier last year for the Xbox and PlayStation 4. If you have the Dragon Ball Z sort of manga in your collection, and if it's anything like my library or other libraries, both public and school, that I have worked in, it flies off your shelves quite frequently and is one of your most browsed and used manga series in your collection. Well, this is definitely worth picking up and adding in, as it follows the main story arc of Goku and does a really fantastic job of sort of capturing the essence of the series, but also having it in a fun, action-packed game story that takes about 20 hours to complete. And so, of course, this is the Switch release. So, again, if you're like my library, where your Switch titles tend to circulate at a much higher rate than your Xbox and PlayStation 4, could be worth picking up. Lost Judgment, following that, is also coming out on September 24th. This one I will point out because if you have any fans or carry the Yakuza series within your library's gaming collection, what has happened in the past year is that there has been a split. So the Yakuza series going forward will be more RPG-like, in the vein of Like a Dragon, which was last year's Yakuza release. And then Lost Judgment will be traditional Yakuza-like gameplay. So they're brawler, detective, going around trying to solve crimes. That isn't as quirky as the sort of path that Yakuza is now taking. Going along, Hot Wheels Unleashed at the end of the month. It has been a sort of talked about murmur underneath the surface of big racers coming out in the next year or so. So, Forza Horizon 5 is going to be a big release. Gran Turismo 7 for the PlayStation 4 and 5. That'll be coming out on March 4th next year. Is also another big one. But Hot Wheels Unleashed should and deserves to get your attention. This is sort of, in the same vein as Cruisin' Blast. It's a simple, fun, engaging arcade racer that doesn't take itself too seriously, and who didn't grow up with Hot Wheels cars as kids. And so if you're looking for something that'll appeal to a much younger audience, that's accessible as a racing game to a younger audience, and isn't, more simulation-like, or, Forza Horizon, as much as it has the arcadey feel, it's still grounded within the reality of high-performance cars, still requires, a higher degree of gaming ability in terms of racers. Hot Wheels Unleashed is going to be that simple pick up and play, 3 buttons tops, and you're going to have a blast doing so. And it looks to me to sort of be, if Hot Wheels met Mario Kart, for example, in a video game. And that, in and of itself, wraps up September. Going into October, a new release that has just been announced for October 5th, right at the very top, is Alan Wake Remastered. The Alan Wake original Alan Wake came out on the Xbox back in 2007, 2008 for the Xbox 360. Again, sort of that Twin Peaks murder mystery vibe to it, so it is for a mature audience. And what they've done with the remaster is basically just up-resed it. It looks prettier, it moves more smoothly, and if you're looking for a game to sort of balance out your gaming collection at your library, this is definitely one worth picking up. It's also dirt cheap, so in Canada it's retailing for $40, whether you're picking it up on the newest consoles or last gen consoles. Definitely one worth looking into. I will point this one out as it's going to be a fun one to get into, but it is Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. So, long name. At the end of the day, what this package entails is that it's the first 3 Super Monkey Ball games that initially came out in the early 2000s. So if you remember the GameCube era of playing Super Monkey Ball, this is what this package includes. And so, well, the campaign itself is a lot of fun, and if you've never played Monkey Ball, essentially, imagine you are a monkey in a little ball, and you're working your way down a shifting, rotating puzzle to get down to the bottom and the big banana. Well, that is the main campaign. Where this package is really going to shine is in its multiplayer. Tiny, short games, things like billiards and soccer, where you're playing as monkey ball characters. It's mindless fun, but it's really easy to get into. And for a new gaming audience that you may be inviting into your programming at the library, this is a fantastic one to pick up. Again, it's going to be running on the cheaper side for a new release, so I do believe in Canada it's retailing for about $50 to $55 Canadian. Going through, Metroid Dread is, of course, the big release coming up on the 8th, and I have touched upon this one in the past, but also coming out on October 8th for the Switch. And this is one that I cannot praise enough, is Tetris Effect Connected. So the Nintendo Switch, as of right now, has only had Tetris 99 as its main Tetris game. And while it offers 2-player multiplayer to it, you can't get that traditional up to 4-player experience that you would in other Tetris games. Whereas Connected is going to give you that opportunity too. I also really enjoy Tetris Effect Connected as it plays a lot more with music. And the soundtrack for this game is absolutely fantastic, worth listening to by itself. But the way that the game works with the music and how they work in tandem is absolutely phenomenal. And, if you are a personal gamer yourself who's picking up the OLED model of the Switch, this game is going to look absolutely gorgeous on an OLED screen. If you have not had the chance to pick up the physical editions of the Ori series, so Ori and the Blind Forest and then Ori and the Will of the Wisps, again, these are fantastic platformers that originally came out on the Xbox and are now coming out in one singular collection on the Switch. Definitely worth picking up. Again, in a similar vein to Psychonauts, it's fun, it's quirky, amazing art style, in similar vein to Rayman, and a one-of-a-kind storytelling experience. Just recently announced last week, Jackbox Party Pack 8, of course, I expect will be a huge highlight of any library gaming collection that exists out there. These do tend to be digital-only titles, so this is something that I would add to your in-house consoles or PCs that you may use. If you have a library Steam account, it's worth adding to it. These are immensely popular games that come out every single year, and Party Pack 8 is no different. So it comes with 5 mini games packed in. The big draw for this one is of course going to be it's not Quiplash this year, but it's the doodling one. Drawful animated. So rather than having a still image that you draw, this time it's animated. So I assume it's going to be drawn over 2 or 3 panels that'll then just play in loop on itself. These are really great games because you only have to download it on one console, and then from there, players who want to join in on the game just join in using their smart devices or their computers. And the best thing is, they don't even have to be in the same space. So if you're still running virtual programming, for example, one of my favorite things to do for library programming was to stream a Jackbox party pack from my house on a console that I had it on, stream it through Discord or through Zoom or even, Twitch, for example, send out the link to everyone saying, hey, come out to this, and they can just join in the moment. So this will be retailing for about $30 Canadian, but definitely worth keeping an eye out for, as you definitely get value for your money on this purchase. Hidden within the October litany of games that are coming out, Crisis Remastered is worth checking out. This is going to be a 3-in-1 game collection of really top-notch first-person shooters that came out in the mid to late 2000s, all in one disc for both the PlayStation and the Xbox series of consoles. If you're into sci-fi shooters, this is definitely one worth looking into. And on October 15th, they will also be releasing Crisis 2 and 3 separately. Crisis 1 Remastered already exists on the main consoles. The collection is just a chance to get the trilogy all in one fell swoop. All right, and then closing off the end of the month is Age of Empires 4. I will point this one out as a big Age of Empires fan. A lot of homage has been paid to the historical tribes and cultures and civilizations that this game is going to highlight. And there's a really neat history mode embedded within this game that I'm really excited to check out, where they've actually had historians sit down and explain sort of the importance and significance of some of the weaponry and civilizations within this game. So while you're gaming, you're also getting a fantastic history lesson. And because of the multiplayer nature to this, if you do happen to have an esports league, for example, at the library that you are running gaming programming at, Age of Empires 4 could be one of those sort of like little hidden gems outside of your traditional Overwatch or StarCraft that you may do, that still has that same tactical experience and narrative to it, but in a different and more historical setting. Moving into November, some of the few worth pointing out. So Call of Duty Vanguard, of course, has gotten a release date, and so it is officially November 5th. If you're like my library, and I know I always keep saying that, but Call of Duty always flies off our shelves. And so this year is going to be a really interesting one because of the fact that you have Call of Duty Vanguard on November 5th, and then you have Battlefield 2042, which has seen a delay from October 22nd to November 19th. You now have these two major first-person shooters coming out both in the month of November. But again, if you know that your library's gaming collection does tend to market or favor a more mature audience who enjoys first-person shooters, these are definitely the two big ones that you're going to want to get for the month of November. And so Call of Duty Vanguard is focusing on World War II, so leaving behind the modern aesthetic and sort of Cold War vibe that we've seen in the last two Call of Duty games, and is now focusing on the World War II narrative with a twist. So similar to games like Wolfenstein, or the book Man in the High, or Man in the High Castle. What you're getting with the narrative in this Call of Duty is, if the Germans had won World War II, what then? And so you have 4 fictional characters that you're going to follow throughout. Moving forward, for November, the last one that I will point out, and again, this is for if you run a PC only sports esport league, or you have a sort of massive multiplayer online, so an MMO RPG group that you run at your library or within your school. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, the newest expansion, is going to be coming out on November 23rd. Final Fantasy XIV has become an immensely popular MMO, rivaling World of Warcraft for sort of player base, and definitely one worth checking out. And it's not only allocated to the PC, but can also be played on the PlayStation 4 and 5 consoles. Now, last but not least, moving into December, I have touched upon some of these in other videos that I have done, but the big one that I will point out is that Halo Infinite finally has a release date. And so, better late than never. Halo Infinite is coming out on December 8th. I do point this one out because it is worth having in the back of your mind. Halo is going to be a system seller. It is the flagship title of the Xbox, and one copy of this game is going to work across the Xbox series of consoles. So you won't need to buy multiple discs. If you just buy one, it'll work on an Xbox One. It'll work on an Xbox Series S or X. And this is going to be one that you definitely want to pick up 2 or 3 copies of for your library, even if you're a smaller branch, because I would anticipate a lot of holds on any physical edition that you may have. Now, worth pointing out to patrons, the multiplayer component to this game is going to be free to play. So long as you own a PC or an Xbox console of some kind, you're going to be able to play Halo. And so it'll be very interesting to see what that does for the community, but the nice thing is that if you are all out of copies in your collection, you can at least tell patrons that if they're really wanting to play the multiplayer, the opportunity is there for them. Now, moving forward, Gamesradar is very fantastic at pointing out the rest of the titles coming out in 2021. But what I would like to do is scroll down and highlight some of the 2022 titles coming out and things to keep an eye open for in the future. Some of the big ones coming out, and this is how I will wrap up the stream: Elden Ring on January 21st and Pokemon Legends Arceus are going to be immensely popular games. If you have any fans in your gaming community that you serve of Dark Souls, Elden Ring is within that similar vein, and of course has been penned by R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame. Pokemon Legends Arceus is going to be the next mainline Pokemon game with a unique twist, so it's going back in time, but I expect this to be a very hit title to come out, and especially amongst your Pokemon fan base. Dying Light 2 Stay Human has recently seen a delay, so it was supposed to come out on December 7th of this year. It has now been delayed to February 4th of 2022. But in February, the big release, especially if you are carrying a PlayStation 5 collection, is going to be Horizon Forbidden West. This one had been sort of touted as a 2021 release, but now we have a firm release date itself. This one will be worth picking up and having multiple copies of, as this is a flagship title of the PlayStation series of consoles. The convenient thing about this is the fact that there are upgrade options, but do be mindful the PlayStation 4 copy will not have an instant upgrade path to PlayStation 5. It is a bit convoluted at the moment. I do believe this may be the last title that has a free upgrade to it, whereas later on, as highlighted by Gran Turismo 7, if your library carries a PlayStation 4 copy, you have a patron come in wanting to get the game to play on their PlayStation 5 if they want to experience the full game and its potential on the PlayStation 5. There is going to be a $10 to $15 monetary upgrade path for them to have that PlayStation 4 disc play in PlayStation 5 quality. Rounding out February, Saints Row on February 25th will be one to keep an eye open for. This has always been a more humorous take on the Grand Theft Auto series, so more tongue-in-cheek than GTA is, and will be sort of a reimagining of the series, so it's going back to its roots. This is one of the big ones that has a firm release date, and the last one that I will point out with a firm release date, or the last two, will be Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. This is in the Borderlands series of games. So if you have a gaming community that has been a fan of Borderlands 1, 2, or 3, this is within that realm, but it has a D&D twist to it. And so this will be coming out on March 25th. And the last game I will highlight tonight before closing off this intro to gaming and library session is Marvel's Midnight Suns. The same developers who did the XCOM series of games. Imagine a tactical strategy game, bird's eye view, but you're playing with well-known and beloved Marvel characters, including Wolverine and Deadpool, amongst others. And so that sort of dips into 2022 and some of the big games coming out there. I will later on in the year or early in 2022 sort of compile a list like I have in the past of big titles to keep an eye open for. But for right now, this has sort of been an impromptu look at some of the hidden gems that are coming out for the rest of the year and looking forward into the next budgetary year for your library, games that you may wish to add. So this has been Chris the Gaming Librarian, coming at you with some of the new games coming out. Please feel free to tune in to more segments coming up. Every Friday, I try to run a Let's Play segment where I look at the newest games coming out this year. And on Mondays, I do try to put up new game reviews. And so with the litany of games coming out, I'm trying to really delve in the games more deeply rather than surface level reviews. And so keep an eye open for one on Death Loop that will be coming up shortly. And thank you for tuning in tonight, and I hope to see you in the future. This has been Chris the Gaming Librarian, signing off.